Okay, I'm back. Um, okay, so where I left off was me and my twin sister were uh, at, I guess you could call it just a foster home. There's like a year trial, and if they decide that they want you, then you'll be adopted. Anyway, so what happened was um, he was caught molesting his daughter, and of course he had molested us, but nothing was ever done or said. They were just more worried about the daughter. And anyway, we were quickly zoomed away and into another home. This home was all the foster care families I've ever been in, ever. It was an accumulation of it. Um, we had sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, and the very first night that we moved in, um, we didn't even have a bed to sleep in. We were sleeping on the floor in our room, and in sleeping bags and on the hard floor, linoleum floor, and it wasn't very comfortable. So we were, we did not sleep most of the night. So it was like very early in the morning. And see, my mom and dad, he was married before and she was married before. Um, my dad was divorced and he had two children, boy and a girl, and they were the boy was about 2 years older and the girl was about 7 years older, and about the same age as the other foster girl in our previous home, or not foster, I'm sorry, the daughter of the other foster home that we were in, that we were going to get adopted. So they were about the same age. And then there were three boys my mom had, and they were all older. The youngest was 2 years older than us, and then it just went up to like 8, 9 years. So the very first, well, I'd say it's the morning. It was very early in the morning that we had just arrived, and was it was our first night there. But in the morning, um, the oldest boy, my mom's oldest son, came into our room and said, "If you don't have sex with us and do what we want you to do, then we're going to tell our mom that we don't like you, and we'll just get other girls in here." And he said, "And if you say anything, we're going to beat you up bloody." Do you get it? And I just remember that time. I was so sleep deprived, and my sister and I were crying because we had just left the other home, and we were 6 years old. And it was just very devastating. I know all the sexual abuse, but we still, at that other home, we were able to eat. We had our own room. We went to school. They fed us. They clothed us. The only bad thing is he was a pedophiler, and I don't know. It was just it was just a terrible situation, and we wanted to stay. I guess we didn't really understand what was going on. Anyway, so in the new home, this boy, he was about 13 years old, said if we don't do what he says, then yeah, they would find other girls, and then he said, we picked you out. You know how it feels like being a piece of meat? That's really, I felt so degraded at that time. And then he left the room. The ironic thing about the whole thing is we were getting up at that time to go to church. And everybody thought that this family was just a pillar of the society in that little community. If they had ever known. Yeah, it was not good. Anyway, my dad was very abusive physically and mentally. He was always putting us down. And it was not too long after we had moved in when all three of my mom's boys came into our room very early in the morning. And they all looked at each other as we're looking up from our bed, all kind of snuggled in, going, oh my God, what's going on? The two oldest looked at each other, which one do you want? No, which one do you want? They're kind of fighting over us. And then the oldest picked my twin. And the other one, he was 13, 12. He was like 12, 13. Anyway, at that point, he picked me, and then it was like they just, like, oh, it was just so horrible. We were laying there, and they just both jumped on us, and I tried to fight with everything I had, and they raped us. Both anally, well, not, we were both raped anally. Anyway, when they were done, they looked at the youngest one and said, which one do you want? And at that point he said, I don't think, because he's 6, 7, 8, because he was like 8 years old, I don't think he understood sex yet. And, no, maybe he was 9. But anyway, he would come later in that time frame. Well, the social worker came over, and it was about a week later to check in on us. And, I had told my sister that we really need to say something. And she's like, yeah. So I don't know why, but I was always the one who was speaking up and kind of protecting both of us. Anyway, I was very, very nervous to tell her because she wasn't the type. She was very old, for one. She was always talking about she needed to retire. So I was just hoping, I brought it up by saying, can we go back to the Bowmans, our old foster care, where we just left? She said, no. And I said, well, there was another doctor who is looking to adopt us, but only wanted one. And I said, well, would he consider adopting both of us? And she said no. She was very adamant that he felt he only wanted one daughter. And this is a very interesting fun fact, but about 18 years later, I went to a doctor, And it was him. And because we were going over my medical history, and he said, "Oh, I was looking at you to adopt." And it was just really bizarre. My life is weird. But anyway, so I just said, look, I didn't have a word for it, but I said, look, our bottoms hurt. We were attacked. And I said, do you want to see where they hurt us? And she was just like this. And then she looked out the window and like she just didn't want to hear it. And I just said, look, this isn't a very good home. We shouldn't be here. And, well, she just kind of got angry and looked at us and said, look, you're getting too old to get adopted. You're 6 years old. You're almost turning 7. No one is going to adopt you. And I can't. This is your last stop. You either get adopted by these people or you go into foster care again, and it could be much worse than what you have been in, and you could get separated. So she just said, look, when you turn 18 and you age out, then you can start a new life. And at that point, I felt so defeated. I felt as if my whole world was falling apart. And I couldn't understand, if this was the world, what the heck? I mean, was this going to be my reality of being raped and molested and beat by my father and raped and everything by these 3 boys? And then later, my dad's daughter and son went vehemently against us. It was pretty bad. But anyway, I just kind of gave up hope, and I got angry at the same time. And we had been going to church a couple times, I guess, at that point. And I was just learning about God being our Heavenly Father. Well, there was this one time when we had gone to church, and I tried to ask the pastor, how do you get to talk to God? I mean, what if you need to talk to him like face to face? And he said, well, you can't, only when you die, And excuse me, boy, my allergies, it's just like, anyway, I'm getting tired of this. Anyway, he had this weird puzzling look on his face, like, do you need to talk about something? And I didn't know who I could trust. I wanted to tell him, but then I was very fearful that me and my sister would be, just get into a worse situation that we were in and be separated, and we wouldn't have each other to protect each other or anything. So I just said, no, I don't need, I just want to know how to talk to him. And so he explained praying and stuff to me, and so I was like, okay. Well, on the ride home, I just got this idea. Look, I know that there's an afterlife. I saw my great-grandfather die in front of me. I saw angels. I saw the stairway to heaven. I saw it, so I know that there is something there. And I just got a plan. And we got home, and I was, me and my twin sister got dressed into our little play clothes. We went outside and we stood under the cherry trees. And you know that opening, that bright light I was telling you about with little gold dust? Well, it opened up, and I was like looking at Candy, my sister, and I said, I'm going to kill myself. I need to talk to God. He's our Heavenly Father. And she's like, what? And I said, look, you can stay here, or you can come with me, but I'm going to do it. And I've already got the plan on how to do it, but we're going to do it. And so we planned on it like the following weekend on Saturday evening. And my plan was to get a bunch of poison, which was in the garage, and there's just so much of it. And my dad was saying, you don't take that or that, and especially this, and he like pointed out the skulls on the paper and stuff, and I'm like, okay. So my mom and dad were in the kitchen, and I had to get cups, and I wanted to make sure that we had big enough cups. So they're big, huge 16-ounce cups, and I didn't know how to do it without being noticed, but it just went so smoothly, like it was like meant to be, especially with the light coming down and everything. And I'm definitely not advocating this at all. So don't. Anyway, we walked out of the kitchen living room and into the garage, locked the door, and we poured out equal measure of each poison, and the one that was like the very worst we put more of in. And we stood at the foot of the garage door and basically said, goodbye, goodbye, world, I'm sorry. I wish I were a better speaker. Anyway, so we swallowed it up. She gulped hers down, and she kept looking at me like, come on, hurry up. Are you going to drink yours? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know how she did it. It was the nastiest thing I have ever tasted in my entire life. And it kind of ruined my throat too. But anyway, I drank it down, and I took the cups and I hid them behind some sacks, and then we went inside and basically we said goodbye. I saw a vision of what would happen if I told them and could possibly reverse what was going on. And I saw like little bubble points, like situations and things, and it was a lot like seeing the review of my life. And it's like I saw my mom's point of view, and she would have been sad, but she would have got on, and it wasn't anything about trying to get attention or anything. We wanted to talk to God. We wanted to have our situation changed. I had to talk to him. So anyway, seeing my dad, I mean, he was just going to get more abusive. I saw my other siblings. I saw an attempt on my life. Just some really horrible things. And I'm thinking, well, I don't want to stick around for this. So I kissed them goodnight on the forehead. And we walked upstairs. Our beds were right next to each other. So we both laid on our beds and we just looked at each other, waiting. And it was the most agonizing thing. I could feel my body just dying. I felt things shutting down and my life being taken away. And my sister kept saying, "Are you still there?" If I were too quiet. And I'd say, "Yeah." And we'd keep checking in on each other. And then it got real quiet over there. And I'm like, "Are you there?" I didn't hear anything. And she drank hers a lot faster, so it worked faster on her. And now I could feel me grasping for air. And each time I tried to take one in, it just got harder, and to blow it back out, it just got harder. I remember taking my very last breath, and it was just like, and my eyes were closed, and everything got real stale and quiet and dark, so dark. And I was just wondering, is this death? What is this? And I'm like waiting. I wasn't breathing, nothing. I was dead. And next thing I heard, "Get up. Somebody wants to talk to you." This male voice, very strong and authoritative. And I'm like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. So I'm like trying to wiggle and get up, but I couldn't. It was just like dead weight. Then I heard, "Get up." And I'm just like, I can't. I'm just trying to move. I can't. And then he said, "Get up. Somebody wants to see you." And I'm just like, well, that's somebody I knew from the past. This was going to be God. And I knew I was in trouble. And I was trying to get up, and all of a sudden it was like, boom. And I got it. I was sitting down, but I looked down at my body, and it was like just a lump of meat. It looked gross. It was still really dark, but there was this little light, and I looked over at the foot of the bed towards my sister to see if she made it, and she was standing there with her angel. And I looked at the foot of my bed, and I saw this huge angel dressed in white. It had a rainbow over its head, and it had like a gold rope for a belt. And he was holding this lantern, and he said, "We need to go." And I was like, I didn't want to go because I knew I was in trouble. Ooh, I gotta do a part 3 now. I'm sorry we're over. Hopefully this will upload, so I'll be back.